When I first began astrophotography about 3 years ago, I was using a borrowed Nikon DSLR. At that time, I started eyeing the new Canon EOS RP full-frame camera, but instead decided to buy a dedicated cooled sensor astronomy camera. And of course, I'm glad that I did. I bought one from ZWO, the ASI 533 MC Pro, and still use it for most of my deep sky imaging today. Recently, I have taken lots of landscape and travel and astronomy gear photos and video with my iPhone SE camera, and even started this YouTube channel using smartphone images and footage. But when Canon announced a new economically priced full-frame mirrorless camera with upgraded features compared to the RP, I knew it was time to invest in something more capable. This video is about my first light experiences testing out the new Canon EOS R8 camera to take images of the night sky and some low-light videography. I hope you'll stick around to see the photo and video images and hear my first light impressions. This is me here, JP Astro Guy, messing around with the camera during the evening hours to get familiar with all the features and capabilities. The entire rig you see there is new from the ground up, but let's talk about the camera first. I am not a general photography buff and definitely not an expert. All I really know fairly well is astrophotography, and frankly, the complexities of a new mirrorless camera like the EOS R8 is a bit challenging. I don't even fully understand some of the terminologies used to describe the features. Yeah, of course I watched lots of YouTube videos and developed a decent working understanding of the basics. Enough so that I decided to take the camera and put it to the test under the stars. Now of course there are pages and pages of specifications, but the main reasons I bought the R8 camera are its 24 megapixel full-frame sensor, its compact size and low weight, its state-of-the-art Digit 10 processor, its vastly improved video capabilities over the RP, its ability to take raw format images, and its very reasonable price of $1,500. Sure, there are lots of cameras that boast the same features and even more, but I have a personal preference for Canon, and I do not need any high-end professional equipment. I want to use the camera primarily for making my Astrophotography Japan YouTube videos and for some dark sky Milky Way photography. So my preferred camera should have good low-light capabilities. I think it's controversial, but there seems to be sentiment that full-frame cameras will perform better under low-light conditions than APS-C or others. Hence I was looking for a reasonably priced full-frame mirrorless Canon camera. The EOS R8 is the newest camera that meets all the criteria. Now, the online reviews were rather ambivalent regarding the 24 to 50mm RF kit lens. And besides, it is a zoom and not a prime focus lens, which is preferable for astrophotography. Hence, I decided to purchase a wide-field RF lens separately. The most inexpensive wide-field lens in the Canon RF lineup that has image stabilization is the RF 35mm lens. Besides being quite compact with auto and manual focus options, it has low-light capabilities down to f-stop 1.8 and was priced reasonably at around $400. Together with the R8, I think these two are a perfect pair, ideally suited for my personal needs. I actually ordered them through B&H Camera, New York City, shipped them to Japan, paid about $200 in duties, and still it was several $100s cheaper than buying the exact same camera and lens in Japan. Go figure. For buying most photography and astrophotography equipment, I like to shop directly from China, mostly through AliExpress. Sometimes you can find similar prices in Japan, but usually AliExpress is cheaper, and I find their website search function to be highly superior to amazon.co.jp. So I also bought a new tripod shown here, which is actually an overkill for this camera. The tripod has a maximum load capacity of 30 kilograms, but the reason I bought something that hefty is because I also intend to use it to mount my Zwiebony SV48P telescope for visual astronomy. I wanted a sturdy and compact tripod for easier travel and this one seemed suitable for multiple purposes. For added convenience with the camera usage, I also bought a center column extension pole with a similar width to the tripod legs. It is very sturdy and lightweight and provides a rather nice stand for a panoramic ball head mount to sit on top. I bought a compact and low-profile ball head mount with enough capacity for my camera. It was rather inexpensive and works fine. However, I think the old-style ball head design with a higher center of gravity is actually more functional. The kind of wingnut-looking clamp design on my model is actually rather big, and depending on the angle and rotation will sometimes contact and interfere with the Arca Swiss clamp, preventing me from achieving a desired angle. So I have to rotate the ball clamp base to move the clamp to a position where it does not interfere. This is not a big problem, but just an inconvenience. A taller ball head mount or one with a round clamp handle would not have such a problem. This is just FYI in case you're thinking of buying something similar. So this is my full setup. It is tall and sturdy and functional and looks pretty awesome, don't you think? To assist with taking photos remotely, I downloaded the Canon Camera Connect app. From left to right, you see here the opening menu, the settings page, and on the right is the image capture screen. This free app works for taking both video and snapshots. I also downloaded an intervalometer app. The central green box is a screenshot of my iPhone Astrophotography icon page. Notice the two icons near the bottom are the two apps that we have just talked about. The intervalometer app is a Bluetooth app, and I used it to take a number of consecutive photos that I will share with you on the following slides. I like this app. It is simple and clear and cost only about $10. I think it is better than carrying around another piece of equipment. By the way, the R8 camera has a shutter speed setting range that goes all the way up to 30 seconds. That is a bit unusual. So here is my astrophotography perch at Kawawafuji Park. These photos were taken with the EOS R8 camera. The series of astrophotographs that I will soon share are taken from the top of this lookout base at Kawawafuji Park later that night at about 2 a.m. until sunup. This night was particularly good for testing my camera since there was no moon out on that night at that time. At 2 a.m., much to my surprise, there were two college student boys there at that time who took a keen interest in my camera and the photos. They were polite and not bothersome, so the company was welcome. This first image here is a 10-second single-frame exposure taken at ISO 500 and f-stop 1.8. This image was taken under bulb mode with the lens switched to manual focus and the image stabilization mode turned off. I actually used the intervalometer app and took 3 photos to practice using this app. The image capture format on my camera was set to RAW only. And this image is looking north, directly at Ursa Major, the Big Dipper. Can you spot it? Probably not, but the constellation is visible to the naked eye under these Bortle class 7 to 8 skies of Yokohama. Here is that same single-frame image imported into iPhoto on my iMAC computer. Oh, by the way, it was possible to upload photos from the R8 camera directly into my computer by simply plugging in a USB Type-C cable into the camera and the other end into my iMac. That automatically opened up a Canon software that imported files I selected right into iPhoto. And iPhoto can visualize and edit RAW files with no problem. This way of uploading photos is convenient for working with individual images, but if you want to work with, say, 100 or more consecutive images of a deep sky object for stacking, this is not the best way to import files for that purpose. I will talk about that a little later. On the right panel are shown almost all of the adjustments that I made to the photograph, including maxing out the black point and nearly maxing the contrast. I also dramatically increased the definition and sharpen parameters to brighten the stars. And here is the full image after all those adjustments. It actually looks pretty good. Of course, my Bortle Class 7 skies are not suitable for this kind of wide-field photography, but this night is all about testing the camera and getting familiar with its usage, not doing any serious deep sky imaging. From this photo, you can see that the stars are tiny, crisp, and tight, thanks to some convenient manual focus features built into the R8. For instance, there is a 5x and 10x zoom feature, which is handy for centering on a bright star to focus the image. And in manual mode, there is a visual focus guide box overlaid on the image that actually guides you to a perfect focus as you adjust the lens focus ring. You can position that box anywhere on the image by touching the view screen. What you see are 3 digital triangles near the box that converge to a point as you turn the manual focus ring. When the triangles converge, the focus guide box on the image turns green upon achieving a good focus. Even if the only thing in that focus box is one bright star, the digital focus guide works consistently well and is impressively easy to use. It takes the guesswork out of star focusing and saves a lot of time. Here is the Big Dipper image after running it through astrometry.net. Now I'm sure you can see the outline of the Big Dipper here, along with the constellation Canes Venatici to the left and a section of Draco to the right. The statistics provided by astrometry.net suggest this image is covering 56 by 37 degrees of night sky with a pixel scale of about 34 arcseconds per pixel. I guess there must be some sensor-specific metadata embedded in the image that allows the image recognition software to calculate the arcseconds per pixel statistic. Now, here is another image taken to the south toward the rising Milky Way using the same image capture parameters. This photo was pretty close to the horizon, so the light pollution is even worse on this image. Once again, after uploading to iMAC Photo and making the same parameter adjustments, we can begin to see some stars and faint nebulosity from the Milky Way. Here's that image run through astrometry.net to identify constellations. The constellation of Sagittarius was fully captured in the center of the image. And again, here are the other statistics from this image. Remember, we are looking at only single frames captured with a 10-second exposure under Bortle Class 7 to 8 skies. In this next image, I recentered and pointed the camera 35mm lens a little higher to avoid some of the light-polluted horizon. This is the raw 10-second image of a single frame. And this is the processed image of that single frame. So at this point, I programmed my intervalometer app and I snapped 100 consecutive 10-second images. But before I show you the results of that image stacking, let me tell you how I retrieved the image files from my camera. The prior method I described of connecting my camera via a USB Type-C cable directly to the iMAC was inconvenient because it linked to iPhoto. I did not want that. I wanted to download many raw images to a computer file where I could store and access the images with my stacking software. I found that the easiest thing to do was simply purchase an SD card reader to directly connect to my computer via a USB Type-C connection. Now, the chip that I bought was a 64GB SanDisk Extreme Pro SD card. The V90 UHS-2 specifications make this a very fast chip suitable for the EOS R8 camera. I think the 64 gigabytes are enough since it can hold several hundred raw images with this memory capacity, but I would not buy anything smaller if I were you. I worried a bit that my purchased card reader was only a UHS-1 reader, which I expected to be slow in transferring image files. But it cost only $20, so I took the chance. Actually, it was not slow. I simply dragged and dropped the Canon image file from the SanDisk directory to my desktop, and it took just 3 minutes to copy over 200 images and video files. After stacking 50 of cloudless images into Deep Sky Stacker and processing that stacked image to the best of my abilities, here is that image with the Milky Way nebulosity appearing a bit more evident. In fact, it was easy to match this pattern to detailed images of the Milky Way and identify objects in this photo. Some of the more prominent ones are labeled here for your convenience. On the left of the image is the star Nunki and other nearby bright stars. And close to that is the Great Sagittarius star cluster M22. Now, as you may know, M22 is a globular cluster. It is magnitude 5.5 and one of the brightest globular clusters visible from my mid-latitude location, but it is not a pinpoint star. If you zoom in on this image, I find it remarkable that the appearance of this cluster is distinctly different from a bright star as one would expect to see under high magnification. But this image was taken with a 35mm wide-field lens and full-frame camera. Of course, it is a stacked image with a little over 8 minutes of data, but nevertheless, the object actually looks different than a star. I believe this is a testament to the ability to achieve precise focus in the manual mode with the digital tools provided, and the precision and capability of this remarkable sensor in the Canon EOS M8 camera and the 35mm lens. I think that is pretty impressive. Okay, let me give you one more example of a single frame photograph. This next photo was taken by pointing the camera literally straight up at the zenith sometime around 2 o'clock or 3 o'clock a.m. Up here, the light pollution of the Yokohama skies, of course, is at its minimum. Firstly, notice the very bright star to the center left of middle. That one and a few other bright stars show some purple fringing at the f-stop of 1.8. This is chromatic aberration. I have not tested other higher f-stops to see if that aberration can be minimized. But it is also worth pointing out from this photo that I do see a little bit of vignetting of the image with the 35mm lens. Actually, I did not expect that since the RF lens series is designed specifically for full-frame camera sensors. Yet, some vignetting does exist. I do not know if this is a lot or if this is minor because I have no experience with full-frame sensors previously. Here is the processed image from the Zenith photo, and you can see a beautiful and complete star pattern across the entire frame from edge to edge. Based on this image, I suspect that the vignetting issue is really not very significant. In this image, you can see the stars Vega, Satyr, and Deneb. Almost the entire Cygnus constellation is captured in this image. Now, I hope you realize the purpose of this video was not to dazzle you with beautiful Milky Way or deep sky object photos. No sane person would try to image the Milky Way from the metropolitan Tokyo-Yokohama city area. The purpose was to simply explore the features and capabilities of the camera and lens and smartphone applications in my local area where I could get familiar with using it. But I thought the results were so surprisingly good and easy to achieve that I wanted to share it. Well, there is one last important feature of the camera left to explore: video. What I am showing here are video images taken that moonless night atop of Kawawafuji Park with my Canon EOS R8 using the 35mm lens on fully automatic mode with just the ambient low light nighttime illumination. This is unedited MP4 video footage taken at 30 frames per second at 1080p definition, not 4K. You can see the performance of the R8 adjusting for the proper aperture and exposure and the ability to focus under these very challenging conditions. In this next video footage taken a few nights later on a much warmer night, I am comparing my iPhone SE and the Canon R8 using the same setup on fully automatic mode. These are also unedited MP4 videos taken at 30 frames per second at 1080p, just regular high definition. The first half of this video is taken under red light conditions, and the second half with a small LED white light providing illumination from below the tripod. Overall, I have to say the performance and integrity of the R8 video is vastly superior to using my iPhone. I am quite satisfied with the low-light video performance of the Canon R8. That was one of the main reasons I bought it, and I am not disappointed. By the way, I was out using the camera consistently for about 2.5 hours, taking photos and videos on the first moonless night, and the battery lasted the entire time. The small LP E17 battery of this camera is frequently criticized by reviewers on YouTube, but I do not think it will be a big problem based on my usage style. I did, however, order 2 more batteries as backup to be sure I have enough for a full night of imaging and videography in the future. So, thanks again for joining me on another episode of Astrophotography Japan. For those of you that might be considering the purchase of a new mirrorless camera for some use in nighttime sky imaging or low-light videography, I hope this episode has been helpful. At least it provides one example of the performance of a newly released camera, the Canon EOS R8, for you to consider. I do not have much experience with it yet, but from what I see so far, I am very satisfied overall. I hope in the next few months, during this summer of 2023, I can take this setup with me to a Japan dark sky location and capture some nice wide-field Milky Way images to share with you. So stay tuned for that. But until next time, here's wishing you clear skies and the time to enjoy it. My name is Paul Cheesegel, and I am an astrophotographer.